Hi all, welcome back to the channel again. Today we are going to discuss about guards in Angular. Guards, nothing but are route guards, and Angular actually gives us a ability to protect our route from unauthorized access. Unauthorized access, nothing but the user which is not authenticated, and the unauthenticated user is trying to access some of the resources of our application. Now, to access the resources, he needs to put some path in the browsers, and those paths are nothing but our routes. So as you look at over here, the menu, under menus, the chapter, this is nothing but a path, and using this path we are accessing the chapter component, right? So to protect this particular path, we gonna give the route guards, and there are multiple types of route guards available in Angular. Previously in the older version we used to create a class, but now in the latest version they have provided us some functions. Now look at the examples of it. The first one is CanActivate function guard, the second one is CanDeactivate function guard, right? And then the third one is CanActivateChild function. Then we have a CanMatch function. The CanLoad function guard is actually deprecated, and instead of that we are going to use the CanMatch function guard. And after that, at last, we have a resolve function guard. Now let's discuss about CanActivate function guard first. So CanActivate function guard is actually used to prevent certain route from unauthorized access. And in the same way, the CanActivateChild function guard is also used to prevent unauthorized accesses to the child routes. Now if you look at the path which we have in the browser right now, so till menus we have a parent component or a parent root, but inside that the chapter, home, products are a child routes, right? So to prevent access to this particular child route, now this is actually considered as a child route. As you can see, menus, like the chapter under menus, right? So we are actually directly accessing this child menu. So to prevent direct access to the child menu as well, we can actually make use of a CanActivateChild function guard. After that, we have a CanDeactivate function guard. Now this CanDeactivate function guard can be used in the parent routes, in the child routes as well, right? So now if you look at the function name itself, right? So whenever you are trying to hit the new URL or trying to go to the new component from the old components, let's say you know um, we are now on a chapter component, and if you want to go to the home component, but there are actually some unsaved changes are there, right? Some unsaved changes, or let's say you know like again, like we want to warn a user in order to navigate to particular route, or if you want to give some brief information about the new component, you can give that over here as well. So the CanDeactivate function guard is nothing but whenever you try to go to new component, and the old component or old root will be deactivated and the new root will be activated. But before deactivating the old root, you can inform user that you are leaving this particular route. If you have any kind of unsaved changes, you can save them, right? A confirm type of you can give alert or confirm, or you can give the toast notifications as well. So toast alerts or toast confirm dialog, or if you have material UI used, so you can directly give the confirm dialog or alert dialog, something like that. okay, before leaving this chapter component. So for that reason we can use the CanDeactivate function guard. Now we have a CanMatch function guard, right? The CanMatch function guard is actually used whenever you have multiple components representing the same route. Okay, so now let's say I have created another chapter component with the same route, but now I need to write down a logic to show the new component and the old component with the same URL. Okay, so now I can dynamically show either the old component or the new component. So that logic we can add in the CanMatch function guard, right? So now sometimes what happens, as we have actually seen in the in our previous videos as well, how we can render a dynamic component or programmatically render a component, right? So there we have made use of view child decorator. So now instead of doing that, what we can do, we can directly use the routes to render components dynamically, and that logic we can add in the CanMatch function guard. Okay, so now let's talk about the resolve function guard. The resolve function guards are actually a resolve functions which loads data before visiting that particular component. Let's say I want to visit home component, but before activating that particular route, if you want to load prefetch or preload some kind of data which this particular component needs, you can do that in the resolve function guard. Okay, so now let's say I want to visit home component, and I want certain data to be available as soon as this route is activated. So in that case you can use the resolve function guard. Now as we have gone through each and every function guard, and then we have uh, we have got to know that overview of route guards as well. Now let's try to implement the CanActivate function guard and CanActivateChild function guard, because these two are very kind of same, and these two are used for the same purpose, right? To prevent the access of unauthorized guy or unauthorized user. So let's implement these two first. So for this we do have our service, which is nothing but auth service, right? um, Whenever we are login, so let's give me a brief uh, structure. So now we have created a login component. So inside login component, whenever a particular user logs in, right, let's say test, and I haven't given any kind of validation over here, some password over here, and then once user submits it, we are actually using the auth service. So let me walk you guys through the login component as well. So we do have a login component over here. So as you have seen, it has two input fields and a submit button, and this is nothing but a template form. So as you can see over here, and we are redirecting to the menu component once a user submits the form. No validations we have added over here, just a simple form. So this is the simple object we are using to create a template driven form. Now once you hit login, it actually navigates to the chapter component, and after that it actually sets the credentials over here. So this is nothing but we have injected the auth service into the login component. Now if you go to this method, you can see we do have a username kind of field over here, and we are setting its value, and with that we are actually logging the same user credential value to the local storage as well, so that whenever we try to refresh the application, the auth service reinitialized itself, and we are not going to use the states and all. So we will be learning the state management in Angular very soon. but for now we are making use of a local storage. Okay, so whenever browser reloads, we are using this key, logged in key, so that this username field should not be undefined. Now we have used the login component, right? And we have used the auth service. We need to use the same auth service in these two route guards, actually, CanActivate and CanActivateFn. Now we need to check whether this particular user is authenticated or not. So how we are authenticating user? Using login form. And now user is authenticated. As you can see, its name is available over here, right? Now this is the username and which is authenticated now. Now we need to authorize this user to to access this particular routes. For that, we have actually created the config file, right? Route guards config.ts file. So you guys can also create this file, and which holds all route guards at once, and you can import whatever you need from this single file itself. So you don't need to create a separate TypeScript file for each route guards. So we are taking help, or we are actually using this particular file to represent all route guards at once. Now over here only we will going to add the CanActivate function guard and CanActivateChild function guard. Now let's try to add the CanActivate function guard first. So for that we need to write down export const and then the function name, right? Function name is nothing but CanActivate route, or maybe CanActivate is equals to, right? CanActivate guard is equals to, we need to give the type for this particular function actually, right? So to give the type, we can import the CanActivate function from Angular router. Okay, so once you do that, if you want to create, and then you need to create a function. But now as you can see, we have got a red line over here which says the void is not assignable to the type of maybe async of type guard result, right? So now for that we need to go to the CanActivate function guard over here. We just need to copy the entire signature, copy the signature, copy the parameters first, and then copy the signature as well, the return type signature. So we need to copy the return type signature from here, right? And after that, what we can do, we can just import the things which are necessary, right? So in this case, activated route snapshot, and then we have router snapshot. After that we have a maybe async, right? So this we need to import from Angular router, and then the type guard result type, again, like we need to import it from the Angular router itself. And then let me take this in the next line, right? And then now we need to return something, correct? So if you look at this maybe async, this is a generic type actually, okay? And they have created it using type alias. They have given a name, and they are using the union type over here, so that user can have their own type, that is nothing but a boolean type, uh, or observable of boolean, or a promise of boolean, right? And after that, if you visit the guard result, it contains boolean, URL tree, and redirect command. These these three types as a union type. Okay, so we can give either boolean, URL tree type, and then redirect command type as well. So this is nothing but a type alias, right? So they have created their own type, like Angular team has created their own type, guard result kind of thing. Now we know that we do have a boolean type over there, so let's try to return true first, so that we should not get any kind of errors. Now what I want to check whether that particular user is authenticated or not, right? So in that case, we do need to, you know, um, inject the service, right? So we do have a service which is nothing but this auth service, right? So over here we have, a method called get credentials. So let's use this get credentials method by injecting that service. So let's create a variable const underscore auth service is equals to inject auth service, right? So we have injected the auth service. Now let's check underscore auth service dot get credentials, right? So we are checking for the credentials. So in that case, we need to return true. Now, as I said earlier, whenever you refresh the browser, right, the credentials actually gets their default value because the auth service gets initialized again. So in that case, again, we need to check the local storage key. Else if window dot local storage dot get item, what was the key? We need to get that key. Logged in is the key, right? So add that key over here. So now we are checking whether this key is available or not, or whether this key particular key has the value or not, right? And then at last we are returning true, correct? Um, right. Now once this true condition fails, we need to return false, correct? Because we don't want to give the access to this particular route uh, to the unauthorized user. Now let's try to create CanActivate child guard as well. So it is nothing but a copy of this. So let's use child guard, and over here let's use CanActivateChild function, right? Now this CanActivateChild function, as I hover on this, you can see it actually exposes the parameter of child root, correct? And then the second parameter is same. The return type is also same. There is only a difference of first parameter. Over here we will get the child route. So let's change this route to child route, and everything is same, correct? Now let's try to find out the routes. Let's go to app routes. So we do have this particular menus as a parent route. Now this menu path is working as a parent route now. So let's give CanActivate. This actually gets an array, and over here we need to call the CanActivate guard, correct? And after that let's use CanActivateChild again, and over here we need to call the CanActivateChild guard. So these two things we need to do, right? Now over here, as you can see, let's console log something so that you guys can know. Let's console log these two parameters so that I can show you the differences. CanActivate guard, and then comma the route parameter, correct? Now let's copy paste again the state parameter. Now let's copy these two things and paste it over here. Child route we have. Let's change the key name, right? Now let's refresh the page and inspect it. We will go to the console now. As you can see, both guards are running for us, correct? And they are guarding this particular uh, route. So now if you want to navigate somewhere else, if there is an unauthorized user and you want to navigate or you want to show something else to that user, what you can do, we actually have the not found component with us, as you have learned in the login sorry, in the router video. We have created a not found component over here, right? Now in the app routes we do have this URL, right? The wildcard URL or the wildcard path. So what you can do in the CanActivate, we will need the instance of router as well over here. So let's create underscore router is equal to inject router from not express but angular router. Okay, now we need to make use of this router's navigate method, and over here inside the square brackets, just give the path, the wildcard route path, and again copy the same thing, paste it over here. If it is not authenticated, then in that case we need to navigate that particular user to the not found component. Now as you have seen, for the CanActivate route guard, this is the instance of CanActivate route snapshot. Now over here, as you can see, there is a component called menu component, because this guard is working on the parent component, on the parent path, correct? So that's the reason it exposes all properties for that particular parent path. Now if you look at the activated route snapshot for the child guard, it actually exposes the chapter component, right? Because we are right now accessing the chapter component. That's the reason it exposes whatever we have given in the child path. So if you look at the child path, we have a app.child.routes. Over here, this is the path for the chapter component, right? So whatever you have properties and values in this particular object itself, it actually exposes all those properties over here. Okay, and if you look at the state, now router state snapshot for the parent, you can see it represents the URL, menus and chapter, right? And for this child thing, we have a same thing, menus and chapter, correct? But now in the child we do have a parent, so that's the reason it actually provides us that particular uh, parents tree node as well. Okay, uh, so these are all things actually those two parameter exposes. And now let's remove from the application thing, let's remove this key, let's make its value empty, or let's remove the key itself, and now try to refresh this browser, right? So we have got navigated towards the not found component, because now we have you know uh, because now it is actually checking for these two things. The first thing is nothing but the key from the auth service. If it fails, then again it is checking the local storage item. Now again this is also failing, so that's the reason it is navigating towards the not found component. You can navigate that particular user to the login component as well, no issues. Okay, so now let's log in again, test some password. Now as you can see, logged in key has been set over here. In this case, if you refresh, you will navigate to the chapter component again. So this is how we have actually prevented CanActivate function guard and CanActivate child function guard, and we have prevented the parent menu as well as the child menu at the same time, right? Now let's talk about the CanDeactivate function guard. Now as actually I have told you the brief information in the beginning of this video, right? This is useful whenever you are deactivating the current route. Okay, so now let's create a function again. Let's say export const can deactivate guard of type, let's say can deactivate function, right? Now we do have some parameters to this. Let's copy those parameters now. Let's visit this, and here actually it takes the instance of component actually. Okay, so let's copy this entire thing over here, and the type, right? So this type also we need to copy, right? So over here what it is doing, right? So we actually have a error over here, cannot find name T. So for this we need to actually provide a component instance. So which component instance we need to provide, that is depend on us, right? So you know, for what component or for which component we need to show the confirm dialog, we need to provide that particular component or that particular path. So right now we want to show the confirm dialog on this particular chapter path. In that case we need to give the instance of the chapter component. Okay, so the same instance we need to give over here as well, correct? So now we actually need to have certain key or value. So how do we know that there are some unsaved changes from this particular component, or if you want to give a generic uh, toast kind of thing or generic message that every time it doesn't matter whether that particular component has some changes left or not or unsaved changes. If you want to give a generic kind of confirm message, then you don't need to uh, pass the component over here. You can pass the unknown type. Okay, component unknown, or the over here. Okay, like this unknown type, you can pass unknown as well over here. So in this case the component is unknown, and you are not um, you don't need to care whether that particular component has some changes or not, right? So over here in this case you can give a generic message, and you can use this can deactivate guard on any component in this case. Okay, but now we are actually we need to check some keys from that component itself. So that's the reason we are using the chapter component. Now if we go to chapter component, we have added the unsaved changes as a true over here. Okay, so this is the public property, and we are making use of this public property in the guard. So now let's use const, or maybe let's check if component dot unsaved changes, if there are unsaved changes, right? So in that case let's take a result or maybe response of confirm, right? Or maybe you can use window dot confirm like this. Here the message is, are you sure you want to leave, something like this, correct? Now it gives us a result either true or false. So if user want to leave, so that is nothing but true if result is there, right? If result is there, though, in that case we need to return true. If there is not result, or maybe user has clicked on cancel, in that case we need to return false, so that we are actually preventing that user. And if at all this particular key value is false, I mean there are no unsaved changes, then in that case again we need to return false, because there are no unsaved changes available, correct? And let's talk about the other parameters of this particular guard. The first parameter is current route. That is nothing but we are on a chapter component right now. So current route will become the chapter components route, and the next route, correct, the current state. So this is nothing but the router snapshot of the current route itself. Okay, and then the next state. So next state actually represents the router URL or the router state snapshot of the next route. Okay, so in our case the next route will be menu. Anyway, let's console log all this so that you guys can know. Deactivate guard, we need to give a key over here, and after that the current route, and then we have a current state over here, and after that next state. So for this I need to comment out these two console logs so that there should be no confusion to understand. Now let's implement this on a chapter component, because we are actually now leaving the chapter component to visit the home component. For that we again need to go to the route app child routes, because over here only we have a chapter component. Now CanDeactivateChild is the key, and it again like text array, we need to give it as a CanDeactivate guard as a value, right? Let's save everything. I'll refresh once, and now I want to visit the home component. I'm leaving the chapter component. So as you can see, there is a confirm dialog or a confirm. This is nothing but a Windows confirm. And by clicking OK, we are saying that we want to leave it. That is nothing but a true value. And if we click on the cancel, it is false value. So let's click on the cancel first. By clicking cancel, we are returning false over here, as you can see inside this, right? Because this component has some unsaved changes. Now this properties value is true right now, as over here this is true, we have done mentioned true, so that's the reason it is coming inside this. And right, the control, the browser code control is coming inside this condition, and over here we are showing the confirm message. If once you click on cancel, it is coming inside the else, so over here we are returning false. So if you click on OK, it returns true. Okay, so now let's say I click on OK, we are on the home component right now, correct? So now again we want to visit chapter component. Again you click on home. If you click OK, it navigates. If you click cancel, it stays on that particular route itself. Now let's say we have done the changes, there are no unsaved changes. So in that case we want to make this particular key as a false. Now in this case you won't see any kind of alert, so you can directly, let me refresh. Okay, what is happening over here? Are we returning false? Right, we are returning false, so we need to return the true over here. Okay, so that user should be navigated to the next route. Now we don't have any kind of unsaved changes in this component. Now let me go to the home. We are able to go to the home, right? Now let's discuss about the parameters. So as you can see, CanActivate guard has been uh, you know uh, it actually Angular ran this particular guard, and it provides us the components. So as you can see, activated route snapshot we have, and it provides the component that is nothing but a chapter component, and then the router state snapshot. The first router state snapshot, that is nothing but a current route. Okay, and the next router state snapshot is nothing but the next route. So this is how you can make use of a parameters. if you want to do something before reaching out to the next component, you can make use of these two parameters, activated route snapshot and then the current router state snapshot. Okay, these two exposes the current route. So if you want to take something from these two parameters, you can take you can write your own logic, and after that you can navigate, right? So this is how you can make use of these parameters. Now we need to go to the chapter component again. Now let's understand the CanMatch function, right? So CanMatch function, as I told you, it works on the routes to render components dynamically. So how we can do this, right? So let's go to the app child routes. So we do have a chapter component available over here. Now let me copy this entire object and paste it again over here. Just the thing is, we are rendering a new component over here instead of a chapter component, right? So I have created a new component for you guys so that we should not waste much time. So if you go to the new component, straightforward, it's just a boilerplate code. If you visit the HTML as well, nothing is there, nothing new I have added, right? So just created a component and added it over here. Now what do you want, right? So we want to render this new component in case there are some new functionality added, or that particular user has access to that particular new functionality. Okay, so let's add the CanMatch over here. Export const CanMatch guard of type CanMatch function. Okay, so if you go to this, it actually exposes these two parameters, the route and the segments. So let's copy these two things and paste it over here. Import route and then import URL segments from the router itself. Now we do have the return type, which is nothing but a maybe async of type guard results. Let's add that over here. Now we need to return something, right? So now to write down something like we need to check whether particular user has access, right, to this particular component or not, right? So how we will check? So we do have a services written over here. So let's use the auth service again. Let me see. Yeah, we do have a public property, which is nothing but new feature access. Now in real time, actually we used to take the client ID and hit the API, and there we will check whether that particular client has access to that particular component or not, right? But in our case, we have just use the a public key that is nothing but new feature access. So let's copy this key and use the service itself. So inject that service. So let's inject the auth service over here. Again, we need to check whether this particular user has access to the new feature or not. Okay, so in that case we need to return true, because we need to show that new component to this user. Okay, so if he does not have the access to the new feature, then we, in this case, we need to show the old component, old chapter component, right? So now let's copy, and again I need to console log these two parameter. Let's console.log. The first parameter is route. Okay, but before that we need to add a key so that we will know that these console logs are getting printed from this particular guard itself. Now the segments, right? segments are nothing but the URL segments. Now we are actually checking whether this particular user has access to the new feature or not. Let's add this CanMatch function guard to the route. Okay, so let's go to the app.child.routes. Over here, now let's understand the flow of route match. Okay, so as I told you in the last video, the matching of route takes place from the top to the bottom. Okay, so now if this first component or the first path has some child route, it again checks all those child route, it matches the URL with all its child routes. If it doesn't find matching URL, it comes out and it actually checks for the second object or second path. After that, goes on, like it goes on, it's check one by one all paths, the first parent path and then the child paths. But now in our case, if you are exposing two components or rendering two components with the same URL, if you want, then just put the new component on the top, because in this case only we need to check whether that particular user has access or not, right? If you put this component in the second place, the router by default will load this chapter component over here. Okay, chapter component over here, because we don't have any kind of router match guard added to this component. Now if you do like that as well, there is no issues, but then in that case you need to add the can match route guard to this component as well, because again, like it checks in the auth service whether user has access to this component or not. But there is a catch over here, right? We are showing the old chapter component for every user, right? So in that case, we don't need to add our logic to show and hide this particular component, right? Because we are showing this chapter component to every user. Now the new component, in case of new component, we need to add a logic and we are checking whether to show this new component to the end user or not based on its access, right? So that's the reason we need to put this chapter component at first place, or this particular route at first place, because whenever router tries to match URLs, we need to check whether this particular new component is available or not. Now for that, again we can make use of this can match key, and it again takes an array. Let's use the can match guard over here, right? Now what I'll do, I'll just make the that key as a false, so it already has a false key. It doesn't navigates me to the new component right now. Okay, paste, right? Because we do have that key's value as a false, it is not navigating me or taking me to the new component. Now let's make the value of this field as a true. It actually indicating that this particular user has access to the new component with the same URL, right? Now our can match route guard ran and it actually checked the key, and based on that it returns true. Because it returns true, that's the reason Angular router did not checked for this URL. It actually didn't even uh, gone on this URL to check, because over here only our guard returned true. So once our guard returned true on this particular path itself, it does not went to these paths to check, because it found the matching path and the can match guard returned true. So that's the reason it actually showed us the new component. Okay, so now let's return false from this can match guard, so that Angular router should jump on the second path and it should show the chapter component. Let's go to the route config file again in the auth service. let's make the value as a false. Now as you can see, it actually jumps on the second path and it showed us the old component, right? So this is how you can dynamically render components using this CanMatch function guard. So this is mostly useful in case where we want to show the functionalities based on the user, right? So suppose let's say I want to show um, certain layout, like the different layout for the different user, right? So in that case, what I can do, I can render the layout component based on the clients, based on the configuration of that particular clients. Let's say we have a application, we have created an application which can be configured by the clients. So what we can do, we can dynamically render that component based on the client itself. That's a normal use case, but there are multiple use cases where you wanted to render the dynamic components. So instead of rendering dynamic components, using components, you can make use of a routes as well using the CanMatch function. Now let's talk about the resolve function guard. So resolve function guard is nothing but it actually fetches or preloads the data which is required for the next route. Okay, so before that, let's understand the parameters. So as you can see, the CanMatch guard, it actually exposes the router parameter. The first is nothing but a route parameter. So this route parameter actually gives us the snapshot of that route object itself. So this entire route object, this route object snapshot, it gives us. So as you can see over here, we do have a CanActivate function, we have a CanMatch function, we have a component as a new component, we have a path. So these four properties we have in this object, right? So these four properties only it is giving us in the parameter. Now let's talk about the segments. So the segment parameter actually gives us the path, the URL segments, the path and the parameters. So if it has some parameters, it shows inside this parameters key. The path name it shows because we do have a path name. So every time it shows the path name, but this parameters key is depends on whether this particular chapter or the path has some parameters or not. So right now we don't have any parameters. That's the reason it is showing empty object, right? So this is the URL segment parameter. Okay, so now let's create the route resolve function, right? So for that we again need to export const resolve data, right? Resolve data of type resolve function. Now it again has some parameters to it. Let's go inside this. It has the type. Okay, so type is nothing but what type of data we want to return, correct? So what type of data we want? We want a normal string, or we want a key value pairs, we want observable, or what kind of? We want promise. So we can mention that over here. Okay. Now let's copy these parameters, paste it over here, and again let's copy the return type as well. So return type will be maybe async or redirect command. Okay. So based on that, maybe we can give anything. So let me import the redirect command. Now the type, right? So let's give the type. So type of data is nothing but observable. Let's say observable of string I want. Okay. So again we want to give this same type over here as well in the maybe async. Okay. So now let's call a method. So we do have an observable service over here. We have added a method for you guys so that it could save our time. So get data for root, it is sending us observable of string. That is nothing but this particular um, string, and we have used the off method from the RxJS, which actually sends us the observable. It converts the data into the observable, right? So let's inject this observable service inside the resolve data function. So I'll just create a variable called observable service is equals to inject observable service, right? Now let me take the data dollar is equals to observable service dot get data for root, correct? Or maybe I can directly return this data itself, return data, correct? So now what we are doing, we are returning the observable of string from this particular method. So as you can see, the return type of this method is also observable of string. So let's copy this resolve data function, and let's go to the home component, let's say, because inside home component we are subscribed to the activated routes data property. Okay. So again, like, we will be giving this route data as a key. So now let's go to the app.child.routes. Over here, let's use resolve, right? Now inside resolve, if you go, it actually exposes the type of resolve data. Now over here we need to give key, and then the value could be the resolve function. Now let's create an object over here. The key will be this key. Inside we have a home component, right? So let's go to the home component, copy this resolve data key and add it over here, and then the value will be resolve. Let's take the function name from here, route guards, resolve data, right? Copy it and paste it over here. We need to import that from the routes. So let's save everything. Now what we are doing, from chapter component, if we want to go to the home component, we are resolving data before activating this component or before reaching out this component, right? Let's copy this. Let's go to the home component now from the chapter component. Now as you can see, we have preloaded this string for this particular component itself, right? So this is mostly used to preload certain data which the next component requires. Okay, for that we need to add this data resolver to that particular component's path itself. Okay, so the same thing we have done over here to the next component. In our case, next component is home component. To the home component we have added this resolve data function guard, and then this is the key resolve. It actually resolves the data before reaching out to this component. And to read this data, again we need to visit the home component. Over here we do need activated route, okay, to read the data from the activated URL. So we have subscribed to the data, and then from the response, as you have learned about this data, it is actually nothing but exposing the observable of data, right? So this is the key and value pair. So this type exposes, or this type is of, the value of this type is nothing but key and value. In the same manner, we are actually giving the, or passing the data from the home component. As you can see over here, this is the data, and the same type of data we are passing from the resolve as well. Okay, the root data and the resolve function. So whatever it returns, so this root data is key, nothing but it is matching with this key, the signature, and the value, it is matching with this value, right? So this is how we know. Either we can, if we do have a static data, we can pass using data. If you have any dynamic data, you can use the resolve function. And to accessing these two things, the way to access these two things is the same. You need to subscribe to the data property of that particular route itself. Okay, so if you go to the home component, how we are accessing the ID from the data, the same way you need to access the route data as well from the resolve function, whatever data you are getting from the resolve function. So this is how so if I refresh this, if I go to the home component, you can see the observable has rendered. So this is how we can implement these many route guards. So we have learned the overview, we have learned how to implement CanActivate, CanActivateChild, then we have learned how to implement CanDeactivate, then we have learned how to render dynamic component based on some access keys or certain logic, whatever you prefer, right? So you can make use of a CanMatch function. So you can add that logic and then you can render the component itself from the route paths. Then we have learned the resolve function, which actually preloads data before activating the next route. Okay, and now to give this function, we need to give this function to the next route itself, because we need to preload data for the next route, correct? So we need to give this function to the next route itself. So this is how it is. I hope you have understood the route guards in Angular. So I would recommend you guys to practice on your home, and I mean at your home on your own laptop. And if you face any kind of issues, just let me know, comment out on the video itself. I'll try to answer each and every questions. And I hope you have liked this video. If you like it, so you can hit like on the video, share this video with your friends, and do not forget to subscribe the channel and hit the bell icon so that you never miss any new updates coming from this channel. Thanks all guys. Let's meet in next video.